Wow. Good to have you here. Happy Monday, everyone. I apologize for being a little later than expected, but we had a bunch of breaking news and a story that was getting twisted, surprise, surprise, by the left. Yeah, the facts not quite being what they would seem to present. I'll explain what I mean. Anyway, big news. Tom Homan to the rescue. You know him, such a good guy. He's out ready, willing, and able to get things under control there in Minneapolis. There were all kinds of reports that DHS was pulling out entirely, that ICE was pulling out entirely. I saw these crossing, and I wanted to make sure we had everything correct when I came to speak with you today, this afternoon, because this is a very important time. And I can tell you that that's not correct. DHS is not pulling out. Bovino's pulling out. Tom Homan is going in because this president is doubling down and he needs the big guns. Mr. Homan is taking over, taking charge. So Ilhan, watch out, because between Homan and Omar, oh gosh, you're in tough shape.
Here's what we know. She went from zero to anywhere between $6 and $30 million in a year. I don't know many people that go from 0 to 30 without having a legitimate business.
Or maybe not a legitimate business. Maybe that's the real issue. He gets into money laundering. I'm going to explain exactly what's going on. It all comes, by the way, as we wonder who's behind these coordinated protests. Lots of lefties. Is there any foreign money? We discovered over the weekend a signal chat that will be investigated. That's partly what Tom Homan is going to be doing, because he keeps saying you cannot impede law enforcement. Thank you very much. Welcome to the program. Good to have you here. Oh, did you get snow? You know, I'm in my snowy sweater again. If you're listening on Apple or on Spotify, you got to watch us here. We're live on YouTube. I am on Spotify every day. Please do me the favor of making sure you subscribe to the Spotify channel. But we had a ton of snow in my neck of the woods. Kids are pretty excited. We're looking at like a foot and a half. Hey, they're talking my language. Born and raised in New Hampshire. We like snow. We like it cold. Anyway, Trump going on offense right now, announcing that he's going to send Tom Homan to Minnesota. And that's a big deal because Tom Homan doesn't mess around. Quote, from the president at 8:30 this morning, I am sending Tom Homan to Minnesota tonight. He has not been involved in that area, but knows and likes many of the people that are there. Tom is tough but fair and will report directly to me. That's good, okay? Separately, a major investigation is going on with respect to the massive $20 billion fraud plus welfare fraud that has taken place in Minnesota and is at least partially responsible for the violent and organized protests that we're seeing going on in the streets. Additionally, the DOJ and Congress are looking at Congresswoman, he puts in quotation marks, Ilhan Omar, who left Somalia with nothing and is now reportedly worth more than $44 million. Time will tell all. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT. So a few things going on. We're getting into all of them. First of all, this news came out at 8:30 this morning. So as I was planning the show and putting all of this together, our lead was Ilhan Omar, Trump sending in Homan, and then all of a sudden we see this crossing the wires. We see breaking news, all Border Patrol agents ordered to leave Minneapolis. And I said, what the heck is going on? This was right before we came to air. And I was like, this doesn't seem right. I think that this might be an example of a journalist misfiring, because sometimes they get, it's like, the obit, right? They think someone's on their deathbed. They think they maybe have died. So they have the obit ready to go and they just hit go. And I thought maybe they're just messing up their breaking news. And then what I learned was there was a readout of a call. So Walz and Trump had a call, and Walz is sort of presenting things in a very different way. That call happened after Donald Trump said, I'm sending in Tom Homan. So he was pulling out Bovino all along. This is the Border Patrol, head of the Border Patrol agency, Dan Bovino. You can see here his picture. He's leaving. Tom Homan's going in, but that had always been intended. There's no DHS pulling out. They're pulling out some agents that are close to Bovino. They're sending Tom and his team in. So that's it, okay? So my story holds. He is doubling down on what's happening right there on the ground in Minneapolis right now. He's making sure he's got the best of the best. And Tom, I tell you this as someone who's known him for many, many years, he is the best. And by the way, he's not even partisan, okay? Because this doesn't need to be partisan. For goodness sakes, he got the Medal of Honor from one Barack Obama. Because Barack Obama deported something like, 5 million people? Yeah, okay? And that was Tom who led that operation. So he's back at it. And then some.
border czar Tom Homan on his way to Minnesota right now. And the president made clear in his statement on Truth Social that Homan will report directly to President Trump when it comes to this issue in Minneapolis and Minnesota, I should say. So meanwhile, the president...
So this is good, all right? So he's going to report directly to the president. So Movino, I think, was reporting to Kristi Noem, and Kristi Noem's in a little bit of trouble because, well, the DOJ doesn't really like what she's been saying. We're going to get to that, you know, the internal politics. But bottom line, nothing's really changed. If anything, they're doubling down in a bigger way. I told you, did I not, that Tom Homan has been doing this job for a long time under different presidencies, under different parties. It's important to remember that right about now. Caroline Levitt, moments ago, reminding reporters at the White House of the fact that Tom has done this, not his first rodeo.
This is a Washington Post headline from 9 years ago, 2016. Meet the man the White House has honored for deporting illegal immigrants. And I would remind everyone in this room that it was former President Barack Hussein Obama who awarded a medal to Mr. Homan. So he's obviously very qualified. He has the full trust and faith of the president. He will continue to have these meetings in the hopes that ICE and local law enforcement can cooperate and work together to have successful immigration enforcement, as we've seen in almost every other state across the country.
Wow. Okay. So you're looking at a picture there of Barack Hussein Obama awarding the Medal of Freedom, to Tom Homan. So again, just to clarify, he said this morning he had every intention of sending Tom Homan in. Tom Homan, who has gotten the Medal of Freedom from Barack Obama. So this is just important because I think that, as we've seen, TDS is a real thing, okay? Like TDS is a very, very real thing. So what might have flown under Barack Obama, somehow just when it's Donald Trump's idea, doesn't get to first base. In fact, they use this as an opportunity to stage a giant, huge fit. And they're using Minneapolis as ground zero to try to effectively launch some kind of, dare I say, civil war against the administration and this country, which is not good. I want to go back to Caroline.
You have Governor Walz and, again, the mayor, who have been encouraging these left-wing agitators to come out and to harass and to dox and to threaten ICE and to smear lies about federal law enforcement who, again, are just trying to do their jobs in an attempt to distract from the widespread, massive fraud that has taken place in their state.
Okay, so you understand what's going on. They sense an opportunity. They're like, rabid. They're like, okay, we got a chance here. We can go after the Republicans, we can go after MAGA, we can go after GOP, we can go after ICE. I mean, they want to destroy ICE, right? They're creating their little database so that they can make sure that if you've ever worked at ICE, you're never going to get a job anywhere else in America again. In fact, if Eric Swalwell in California gets his way, I mean, talking about total bedlam, right? Talking about a civil war, he actually wants to jail everyone. Wow. In the meantime, you got Timmy Walz, who's been so disgraced by all of this. Don't forget, for 2 seconds, the fraud, okay, the massive fraud, estimates between 9 and 19 billion, fraudulently stolen from you, the American taxpayer, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, well, all of Minnesota, and they don't want that coming out. So what better way to distract from the fraud and the financial theft than to have a giant, well, it's made for TV, protest everywhere you go. And then when you have tragedies, we've now had 2 where people have died at the hands of our law enforcement. And don't get me wrong, like that is a tragedy, and the president has promised there's going to be a full investigation into what went down over the weekend. But when you have that happen, then it completely sucks all the oxygen out of the story, which is the big story, which is the theft and the stealing from American taxpayers. So you see, this is all by design and very deliberate, to the point where you got Timmy Walz having the National Guard send out coffee and donuts and hot cocoa to the protesters. This is happening this morning. Watch.
Donuts, hot chocolate.
What are you guys giving out?
Thank you for letting
Donuts, hot chocolate.
You're with the Minnesota National Guard?
Yeah, we are. Yes, we are.
Why was this important for you guys to do today?
It's a demonstration of safety and security. We're here to help.
Yeah, we're here to help. We're going to make sure that you're fortified so that you can go hog wild, right? I mean, if you ask me, this is pretty damn deliberate. And you don't have to ask me. Ask anybody with some common sense. And I've talked to a lot of people. Granted, I live in the Northeast and it's pretty liberal where I live. But when you talk to people and you really get down to things, sure, they don't like seeing this. They don't like seeing the violence. They don't like seeing the protests. But you know what they keep telling you over and over and over again? why are people trying to bring this kind of commotion and angst to our law enforcement? Like, the law enforcement's actually just out there doing their job. Not to mention, I mean, when do you hear any of these people all worked up about Lake and Raleigh? You don't, right? They're worked up about everybody else, but it kind of seems like, gosh, guys, you just don't want the federal administration doing its job. You allowed Barack Obama to. CNN did a little ride along where they just touted how fantastic this was, absolutely fantastic, that these people were taking their lives in their hands, our courageous ICE officers. It's like that was 2016. That wasn't that long ago. We're talking not even 10 years ago, and everything has changed. Well, don't kid yourself. It's for a reason, as this gentleman so articulately points out. Let's go to him. This guy's making some good points.
I'm just saying, ladies killed on the subway. Nobody does nothing. Charlie Kirk was shot. No cities were torn up, burned down, or nothing. Lady who decides to drive a car at an officer of the law, and y'all tearing up a whole city. I've said you a special kind of stupid, but right now y'all just acting downright ignorant. Anything that's happened, this is what you pick to stand behind. I'm just saying, come on, make it make sense. Y'all look real stupid right about now.
Yeah, you do look stupid. And Edward, you're right. They are getting paid. This is a professional operation. And we're going to get to the signal chat and all of that in just a second, because this is, you know, I hate to say this, but, you know, what do you think we do all around the country, right? What do you think our intel ops are so good at doing? Our intel ops are really good at running campaigns. I mean, this is what USAID was about, right? You run these campaigns so that you can influence elections and quote unquote bring democracy, or at least, you know, whatever you think is appropriate in the area, because you want to have a good relationship with those in charge that keep the money flowing. I mean, this is what we specialize in. So you don't think that we've got people internally within this country that are also really good at it? You don't think other countries have people that are good at this? You don't think China is donating some money along the way? We've reported extensively on the allegations against one Neville Singman, who now lives in China, because the minute he comes back here, Ana Paulina Luna put out a warrant for his arrest along with Gomer. You know, they'd lock him up. He's got all kinds of money that he throws at these causes, his wife being the woman who started Code Pink. You know, they used to go after China until she married him. Anyway, the president is making it clear, and did from the morning, that they are going to, go after these criminals, period. They did have a call. So Governor Tim Walz called him, and he said and requested that they work together in response to Minnesota. And he said it was actually a really good call. And I said, look, good news. We get Tom Homan going in. And so somehow this gets misinterpreted by the media as, well, you saw it, right? You saw the headline that somehow they were pulling out entirely. And that's just flat out wrong. Here he is saying the governor very respectfully understood, you know, that we cannot have criminals there. They cannot be releasing them into Minnesota. And he seemed to understand that. So he said he was happy Tom Homan was going in. So am I, says the president. We have had such tremendous success in Washington, D.C., in Memphis, in Tennessee, in New Orleans, Louisiana, and virtually every other place that we have touched. And even in Minnesota, crime is way down. But both Governor Walz and I want to make it better. President Donald J. Trump. All right, this is good. You know, he's very presidential. He really is. And this was a moment for him to really show how strong he could be. And he did. That was a nice tweet. I think that, you know, and knowing him as I do, he does not want people dying in the streets. He does not want violence. But what he does want is to make sure he follows through on his promises, which included making sure that you get people who are criminals and have done things that are really bad and are here illegally out of the country. Because I'm sorry, Joe Biden, you did a stupid thing. Maybe not stupid from your perspective. I get that there was a method to the madness, and we can talk about that as we have before, about the, you know, the scheme going on and what was really desirable. So, but it doesn't change the fact that now you have a country where we don't know who's here. And in many cases, people have been arrested for crimes, convicted of crimes, and they're still here. So he wants to change that. He intends to change that. And that was very clear, again, from what he said there on Truth Social this morning. And yet somehow, you know, on the way to the forum, it gets a little twisted. As I said, right before I came on the air, and you're getting reports of DHS pulling out entirely. And I said, oh, okay, let me go double check all of this, speaking to sources and trying to make sure that I have the story right, because the left does not have their story right. Surprise, surprise.
Just got a statement from the office of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz about his conversation with President Trump that we reported on earlier. The governor's office called it productive, adding, quote, the president agreed that he would talk to the Department of Homeland Security about ensuring the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension is able to conduct an independent investigation, as would ordinarily be the case. The president also agreed to look into reducing the number of federal agents in Minnesota and working with the state in a more coordinated fashion on immigration enforcement regarding violent criminals. Now, President Trump is sending a new direct report to Minneapolis. Veteran ICE official Tom Homan. It's unclear how he will work with leaders on the ground, like the chief and the chief at large of Border Patrol, Gregory Bovino. I spoke at length.
Okay. So Gregory Bovino, by the way, just to confirm, he's out. He's leaving Minneapolis. He'll go to another city, I guess. But Tom Homan, again, bringing in the big guns, the guy who actually ran a lot of these ops very, very successfully, he's going to go in. And so, we don't want to hear it. Tell it to the hand, okay, Timmy Walz and Ilhan Omar and the rest of you? Tom's going to go do his job, as he needs to right now. Speaking of Ilhan Omar, she's getting a little bit nervous. You look at this tape and you tell me, is this not the sort of mannerism and personality type and perhaps expression of a very nervous woman right now? Because, you'll find out why.
Investigation into your net worth, you and your husband's net worth. They're claiming that it's risen rapidly. What's your response to what they're saying?
Nothing.
Do you think they'll find anything in their investigation into your net worth?
Yeah, she looks pretty scared, but I'd be too if I suddenly went from 0 to 60 or 0 to 30, shall we say. Her estimated net worth is somewhere close to $30 million after having been something like $200,000, her and her husband, the year before. I mean, how does that happen? Oh, gosh darn it. There was that little thing called feeding the future. I wonder, I'm not saying, but trust me, hey, innocent until proven guilty, but I'd like to see what they come up with because, there's the whole Hawala network. They were transporting out of Minneapolis with the Hawala Middle Eastern money network, something like $700 billion in the last 2 years. Cash. And that was what they declared in suitcases, leaving the country, going to Dubai. I mean, this is very, very sketchy stuff. And the Treasury Department's all over it. And you know who else is all over it? One James Comar, who has a background in banking, by the way, actually worked, I think, at banks, different banks where he ran them. And he's following the money just like Treasury is. I want to share with you some of his thoughts.
Here's what we know. She went from 0 to anywhere between $6 and $30 million in a year. I don't know many people that go from 0 to 30 without having a legitimate business.
Or maybe not a legitimate, as we have been discussing, because it seems quite peculiar. I mean, you just don't. So I've said to you guys that Timmy Minette, her husband, God, bad move, Timmy. Bad move, Ilhan, because, he may be landing you in the slammer if, in fact, what is being alleged about him is actually true. So you heard Comer say he doesn't quite, know what the guy did. Well, actually, I think I'm going to get to that part. He doesn't know what the guy did. I don't know what the guy did. I mean, if you go on his website, he says he's some kind of venture capitalist. I'm like, private equity, venture capital. Like, what is it that he does? And I'm looking at the website, I'm like, oh, gosh darn it, he's a lobbyist of some sort. He's a political consultant and a lobbyist. So you hire him if you want to get a certain viewpoint communicated. Oh, and I guess maybe sent home to Ilhan. That should be illegal. I'm sorry. We need better church and state. No more lobbyists married to these politicians. That's really sketchy stuff. And by the way, I've seen that on both sides. Very sketchy stuff. Okay. So the next question becomes, how did, again, he get to $30 million or, somewhere within that vicinity? I think it's a rather large category, like 20 to 30, but whatever it is, it's a heck of a lot more than 200,000. Okay. That's a lot of money. He's got a winery, but there are allegations of fraud at the winery. He and his partner were sued for fraud allegations at the winery. So I don't know what the deal is with the winery. I think this is getting weird. And I'm not the only one. President Trump saying again over the weekend, not only that he's sending in Homan because they want to get to the bottom of things, right? They really want to do this investigation. They want to figure out also who's impeding law enforcement, and they want to figure out just exactly how Ilhan Omar is worth tens of millions of dollars right now. He's like, how is this possible? I mean, what do you make? 175 grand as a representative from Minnesota? Like, how does she suddenly have millions of dollars? The hubby, trust me, he's not that good a political consultant, or maybe he is. He's not that good of an investor. Trust me, that's not investing. I mean, hey, my gold is way higher, by the way, 76research.com. If you have not gone to 76research.com, I'm going to be mad at you because I told you, did I not? In all of our research, I said, listen, this gold is positioned for more opportunity. And I'll be perfectly honest, I didn't think it would get to 5K today or last night. I thought it might take a little bit longer, but it doesn't change actually my macroeconomic view of things, nor my colleague Rob Horton, who was a stock picker on Wall Street for decades. I really encourage you to go over to 76research.com, use code word dollar and get the 76 report if you can't swing the portfolios, but please try and do the portfolios for goodness sakes. The inflation adjusted portfolio, that thing's been killing it. You know why? Well, we had lots of gold companies in there. Yeah. Okay, so I digress. But my point being that he's not that good of an investor, okay? Like, he's just not. And he's not that good of a, whatever, private equity guy, whatever he calls himself, whatever that may be, I'm not really sure. I just don't think he's very good. So I have questions, and so does James Comer.
Mr. Comer, you were in banking before politics, right? So she suddenly, in 1 year, after being worth a few $1,000s, is now worth $30 million. Have you ever seen anything like that?
No, and the way the financial disclosure forms are, there's a big variation. But here's what we know: she went from zero to anywhere between $6 and $30 million in a year. Now, why is that relevant? First of all, I don't know many people that go from 0 to 30 without having a legitimate business. Her husband is in some type of finance business, but we don't know what it is. It doesn't appear to be private equity. Doesn't appear to be venture capital. So we just have questions. What exactly is the business that you're involved in? It was kind of like the same questions we asked Hunter Biden that he never could answer. But then, you know, she won't answer any questions. The ethics committee is supposed to investigate members. We're not supposed to investigate individual members, but this business is in her husband's name. So we can investigate her husband, and we are going to do that because we're, as you know, in the middle of this Minnesota welfare fraud. And there's been a lot of accusations about a circle of influential Somali Americans that are benefiting from these financial scams in Minnesota. Her name is on the list. Now, she's going to get due process. I don't know if she's guilty, but what I know is she went from 0 to anywhere between $6 and $30 million in a year, and she won't even answer a simple question like you saw there. What did you do?
Yeah, no. So he's going to get to the bottom of it. It's why he's sending her in, and it's important that we find out, because this really doesn't make sense. This is the hubby, by the way. So he's, trust me, not that good an investor, okay? And I don't think he's that good of a political consultant. So how did he make all this money? Really? These are fair questions to be asking, and the president wants to know as well, and the Treasury Secretary certainly wants to know, especially given that there's $700 million in cash leaving the Minneapolis airport over the span of 2024 and 2025. I should point out that that's more money than any other airport. I mean, what is it about Minneapolis where they only transact in cash? And that's what they told us about. Imagine how much else there may have been. That's what the TSA reported. Interestingly, little anecdote for you here. Apparently, Ohio was the second largest, where we have the second largest Somali population, and that was the second largest source, somewhere around 300 million in cash that left in suitcases in a given year. I mean, this is unbelievable. 2 years, forgive me. Caroline Levitt speaking out about Ilhan Omar just hours ago today in the press briefing.
Billions and billions of dollars has been stolen from law-abiding taxpayers in Minnesota, and the administration continues to be very focused on getting to the bottom of it, and especially, and the president raised a good question over the weekend, with respect to Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who now has a net worth within the millions, and one must ask themselves, why and how is that possible? Is she connected to the fraud rings that we have seen taking place within her state and her own district? It's a question the American people are raising, and the president believes it's one worth answering.
Yeah, we kind of need to know, because that would be very much against the law. And if the Treasury Secretary is right and the Hawala network and these money transferring networks were involved, then we also are at risk of money going to really bad actors and bad players, because when you have Hawala, guess what? A portion of it always goes back for the cause, okay? The cause being their really illicit groups that do very, as Ilhan would say, bad things. Somebody did a bad thing. Wasn't that how she talked about 9/11? For goodness sakes. I mean, that's a whole other thing. The woman is just not a good person on top of it all. No. But, you know, she got a little comeuppance the other day. I think this was on Friday. And she starts talking. And she got the hook. She may get the hook in more ways than one coming up. Anyway, watch this. Wait for it. Or Ilhan gets the hook.
Republicans voted on giving ICE billions of dollars to terrorize our communities.
It's like 16 billion. That would be 0.004% of overall GDP. But this is kind of funny.
What we are witnessing from ICE is not law enforcement. It is state-sanctioned violence.
Uh-oh, it's coming.
The gentlewoman is no longer recognized.
Bye. Bye-bye. See ya. Ilhan, I think that's going to happen in a big way, because we've talked about this. Bill Emmer, the representative out of Minnesota, is actually looking to deport her. I mean, Bill doesn't want just jail time. He wants jail time and deportation. And the president has actually talked about that too. These guys aren't messing around. She's actually in a lot of trouble right now, and it's going to be a question of what they can prove. How smart is she? I don't think she's that smart. I really don't. Maybe I'm underestimating her, but I don't think she's that smart, which means I think that they're going to be able to find the paper trail. I think that Besson is a brilliant guy. And because Besson is so smart, he's going to be able to go in and just get all of this. And so if Besson goes in and finds out where exactly all this money went, then the question becomes, can you denaturalize her? Can you deport her? And this is where Emmer and his goals sort of come into line. He just introduced a bill there in Congress where you would actually be able to deport someone who has been convicted of fraud. So he wants to go after not just Ilhan Omar, but anyone in the state of Minnesota that has been convicted of these crimes. So that's a very, very big deal. Again, he just introduced that bill. I believe it was last week, and we'll see if that gets any traction. But Ilhan is certainly in a very, very treacherous spot, because she suddenly went to $30 million. I mean, maybe it's between $6 and $30 million. I want to be cautious on that, but I still don't see how she'd go from 200,000 to $6 million. Do you? I mean, hey, I've got one. I have this little gold fund that's a bit of a hedge, and it's kind of super aggressive, and the thing is up 60% in the last 2 weeks, and I'm watching it like, wow. Okay, but because it's using leverage and that kind of thing. But that's 60%, okay? Again, you're not going from 200,000 to 6 million. And he's not an investor. I mean, other than private equity, and his businesses have not done that well. It just doesn't make any sense. So here's Emmer. Ilhan, watch out. There's legislation to get rid of you.
This law would just provide that is a basis to denaturalize, take away your citizenship, and ship you back. And part of this is because I've got a representative in Minnesota, Ilhan Omar, who likes to go on national programs and play the victim, yet the same representative goes to the University of Minnesota campus and in reality encourages violence against Jewish students. And she says, hey, hey, we're citizens, there's nothing you can do about it. Well, guess what? There is something that we should be able to do about it. You should not be allowed to come to this country, take advantage of the generosity of Americans and the American government, and get away with it. If you commit fraud, you should be denaturalized and shipped back.
It's called the Scam Act, fittingly. Aptly named, right? The Scam Act. Ilhan, watch out for the Scam Act. I mean, she's throwing a total fit, but there's no surprise there, right? I mean, Ilhan's been freaking out, but Elon had this right a while back. Wow, Elon was spot on.
You know who complains the loudest and with the most amount of fake righteous indignation? The fraudsters. It's a tell.
You listening, Minnesota? Yeah, okay. Meanwhile, I mean, this is very politically incorrect, what I'm about to show you, but it's funny. It's definitely funny. This is Stephen Miller talking about how there seems to be a tendency for people that are from Somalia. Now, we don't want to overgeneralize. I get it. But, well, I'll let him make the point, okay? Watch.
Regarding the situation in Minnesota, and by the way, not just Minnesota, we have Somali refugees that were dumped here by Democrats in Ohio and Massachusetts. Let me just say, we should not be shocked when you import a population whose primary occupation is pirate, that they are going to come here and steal everything we have. Somalia has this giant coastline, and the only industry they have created after hundreds of years is piracy, stealing what anyone going through who has actually built something has made. So yes, the pirates have stolen all of our money, and they have to go home.
It's funny, okay? I mean, it's not an untrue point. I mean, it is a mess of a country, right? Like a complete mess. And then you come here and you find out that, whoa, they had all kinds of things going on. And Ilhan was the one who created the Feeding Our Future, actually announced that the day she got married to Timmy. They announced their marriage, I should say. I don't know when they were married, but they announced that they had gotten married on the same day that she announced the $250 million for Feeding the Future. And I was like, wow, it must have been one expensive wedding, right? You know, you got to pay off a lot of people, all those Somalian restaurant owners. And just last week, or maybe about 17 days ago now, she was trying to get another $1 million through for somebody else who owned a Somali restaurant, but had apparently a whole operation upstairs for a mental health clinic. I mean, it sounds sus, right? Well, I'm not saying it was, but given what we now know, given that somebody who was one of her campaign workers, a campaign staffer, imagine that, was convicted of stealing millions of dollars from feeding our nation. Like, how does she sit there with a totally clean scenario? I don't know. I certainly think it would be good for all of us and for her if we find out the truth. Again, don't forget, 76research.com. You don't need to turn to piracy, okay? Thank you very much. There's a way to earn money in an honorable way out there in life. And part of that is investing and being thoughtful and smart about your future and doing the right kind of research so you know what things to be investing in. Please remember to subscribe, share, like, make a comment. I'm looking at all of you. Thank you, Flint Robinson. I will never turn down a compliment. I appreciate that. So what the heck are the feds supposed to do? Let me just ask you that question right now, because I look at the media and the way they're presenting this entire scenario, and I'm not excusing. Yes, it's a tragedy. We've lost 2 people now. Awful. But I also look at how the media is ginning this up. I look at how the left is trying to have these confrontations. We've got news of a Signal chat where they're organizing themselves, and it's very, very well organized. And I really question where people's loyalty really is, because at the end of the day, it should be to your country and to the president. And I'm sorry, I don't care who's president, right? Did you ever see me carry on about Biden the way they're carrying on about this guy, or even Barack Obama? And hey, Obama, reminder, was the one that was putting everybody out of the country. He was the one who was deporting everybody. But for some reason, it's now Trump's fault when he does a fraction. I mean, we're talking a fraction. I think he's deported like 1.5 million, maybe 2. And Obama reportedly deported 5 million. people? Like, this doesn't even make any sense. But yeah, we got to feel for everyone. I mean, even Somalians are telling us now in Minnesota they can't go to work. You can't go to work. Were you going to work? Here's my other question. You can't go to work. Is that because you're here illegally and you committed a crime? Is that the concern? I don't know. MSNBC wants us to feel really bad for him. Watch.
And Durara, what has it been like to live in this community since the Trump administration started this immigration crackdown 2 months ago? What is it like to live here right now?
Do you have your violin ready? Get your violin. Cue it, guys. Cue it. Your little tiny violin for this one.
It's very fearful right now. I see so many of my friends and family just scared to go about their daily day activities like shopping, grocery store shopping. Some of my friends and family members have had to quit their jobs just in fear. Have had to call off work, just a fear of being pulled over by ICE, even though they have the necessary documents to be here. Even my friends and families that are citizens are still scared to still roam around the city that they have lived for a majority of their lives now. More of my friends and family have lived in Minnesota longer than they have lived in any other country. So
then why would they be afraid to go to work? Just saying. I mean, if they've lived here and they actually can legally live here, then hop to it.
To see them being taken away from their homes is just wrong. We believe that ICE needs to leave Minnesota. There has already been 2 community members that are dead, 2 citizens that were killed by ICE.
ICE is not leaving Minnesota. Okay, so as much as the media would like to push that narrative, as much as Tim Walz is trying to gin up a controversy, as much as Ilhan Omar is trying to defund ICE, none of that's going to happen. No, the administration's doubling down. They're sending in the big guns. They're sending in Homan, okay? They're not messing around here. And Homan knows what to do. And it's important right now. I'm going to tell you, for posterity, it's important for the Constitution. At this point, you can't back down. You can't back down, because if you back down, then what happens, frankly, to the Constitution? What happens to the sanctity of the United States of America and the executive branch? If a state can say, not only are we not going to cooperate, which actually legally they are entitled to not cooperate, but we're going to go so far as to impede, and we're going to encourage our residents to impede your law enforcement activity, then that actually puts the U.S. and the future of this great country very much at risk. You see what I'm saying? Because you can't have total lawlessness. You can't have California doing what it wants and not allowing the federal government to do its job and enforce federal laws, because then what good are the laws if they cannot be enforced? So this is bigger than Tim Walz. This is bigger than Ilhan Omar. This is bigger than Minneapolis. This is an important thing for the future trajectory of the country. It's bigger than Trump. I mean, already they're all over the country saying, well, we're gonna impede ICE too. I mean, this Colorado state lawmaker coming out with her little Instagram reel or whatever it was saying, we're gonna do this too because I'm organizing a whole fight against ICE. I'm going to show it to you, but just think about this on a national scale. You got it happening in California and Colorado, and they're going to do it in Maine if they can. I see one of you guys is from Maine, and you're making the point you got fraud there too. Listen, all of it's going to be uncovered. Don't mess with this team. I promise you, because Besant is the real deal, and he knows how to get done what Donald Trump wants accomplished. You know who else is the real deal? Tom Homan. So this is about to get resolved. How do you like that? It's going to be resolved. And we're going to figure out who's defrauding American citizens.
Fascist thugs do not get to fall back into working for our law enforcement after we abolish ICE, which ultimately is what we have to do, because there is no reforming this.
Gosh, she sounds a little like Ilhan, right? We're going to just defund ICE. That's the answer. No. You know what? Money was appropriated by Congress for ICE. And the federal government, that would be the Department of Homeland Security, is in charge of making sure that whoever is in the country is here legally. And so this really is not something that's up for debate, guys. And when you try and make it up for debate, one, you look pretty darn stupid, as that guy earlier said. And two, you seem to be threatening the sanctity and the future of the United States of America. So it's kind of a bad thing. We've learned that there's some kind of signal chat that's actually enabling all of this to transpire. People are actually coordinating this on a massive level, which leads us to new questions about exactly who is paying for it all. I want to go to this state representative who was caught on camera. His name is Alex Faulconer, saying that he had a big hand in this. Now, I don't know if it's specifically the Signal app I'm going to show you. Yeah, this thing. And they discovered there's just this massive operation. This was Cam Higbee who reported on this, and Elon Musk actually retweeted it. But let's go to Mr. Faulconer out in Minnesota, who's so proud to tell us he's a community organizer and knows how to do things like this.
You know, yesterday we had the young man, 13-year-old, handcuffed by ICE, his father taken away. I arrived there as soon as I could. I talked to some of the family members. It's devastating. And I don't know, just going home and talking to my kids about what happened and how this is affecting our community. These are terrible times. But we will get through it. We'll get stronger for it. And we will look out for one another. Before coming to the state legislature, I'm a community organizer at heart, and that's part of what I'm trying to bring to the legislature. I'm helping to lead the community response, rapid response network that we have, given any ICE situations. I have a couple cards here. I'm willing to stop in to stay around and talk with anybody that wants any more information. We've got a couple groups on the app Signal that we would love for you to join. Whether or not you want to be a part of the Resistance Network, I fully understand that you may not be comfortable with that, but you can help us in a lot of ways by sending an alert that if you see any suspicious vehicles, any traffic, if you know of anybody that is being targeted, that's being detained, we have resources immediately available that we can send to you, send to their family, get them legal help, help the families if they need food, if people are...
So what this is coming down to, though, is this peaceful protest or is this impediment? If you have people that are paid, don't forget, a lot of this is a paid operation, and there's concern about foreign influence. If you have people that are paid to be paid protesters, and then they're trying to create this organic movement and bring everybody else in, at what point do you say, okay, we got state lawmakers doing this, state lawmakers that are actively encouraging the residents to come out and protest the federal government doing its job. Like, this is going a little too far. Like, it's completely out of control. It's one thing to say, we're not going to assist you, which they are entitled legally to say. It's a whole other thing to say, we are going to actively resist you. And our lawmakers are actively organizing people to resist you. That actually, I think, crosses the line to the point where you now are on the wrong side of the law. And so this is where DOJ can come in and do its investigation, because if you have lawmakers that are organizing these chats, and again, I'm showing you what was released over the weekend, a very coordinated operation where people were connecting with each other on Signal and they're sending warnings, etc. Don't forget, the judges actually determined that those ICE apps that they were putting out there originally were not legal, because you were getting in the way of the federal government doing its job. Well, again, this is another example of getting in the way of the federal government doing its job. And so this, therefore, should also be illegal. If you've got people that are actually state lawmakers on there, that takes it up to a whole nother level, you understand. So that guy, Alex Faulconer, Minnesota State Rep, saying that he's an organizer, all of these people that are ginning this up, encouraging it, and it's not just, I know,
you know,
hot chocolate.
I mean, it's not just the coffee and donuts that they're providing out there to everybody. It's the actual scale of the infrastructure and the payment in some cases of these protesters that takes it to a whole other level. Don't forget as well, I think it's important to remember that Minneapolis itself was ground zero for the BLM movement. So you have a group of people that are sort of primed for this in some ways. Scalise, Representative Scalise, Steve Scalise, was on CBS over the weekend, and the reporter, who seems to be getting less smart by the day, seriously, is asking him, like, why is it so many people that have gone into Minneapolis? And he explains it to her. In other words, we didn't have this problem in Washington, D.C. We didn't have this problem in Tennessee. We didn't have this problem in other places like New Orleans. Actually, those communities welcomed us because they wanted to feel safer. They wanted to make sure that the criminals were not out roaming. They actually welcomed the presence of, in some cases, the National Guard or DHS. And Minneapolis is a whole other thing. Let's watch.
You don't see these numbers either, though. When we looked at, for example, at the federal response in New Orleans, I mean, it's just a fraction of the number of federal agents. Nearly 3,000 is quite a lot for a city the size of Minneapolis.
Well, that's because they didn't get resistance in cities like New Orleans, where, you know, when you look in Minneapolis, and I just listened to the chief, and you could hear him lamenting 4 times, I think he said, that they're strapped so thin. And let's keep in mind, Minneapolis is a city that defunded their police. That's not the chief's fault. That's the failed Democrat leader's fault. But at the same time, when they defund the police, that leaves the chief stretched thin. And so
he was talking
they've
about
made a decision not to
response.
assist ICE.
He was.
Yeah. So it's kind of a reality of what you've got going on in Minneapolis. You've got a police department that cannot assist, that's been told actually to not assist, and even if they wanted to, they couldn't. Versus even Chicago. Remember Chicago, when all those protesters gathered around an ICE vehicle at one point, and the Chicago police chief just went, you know what, on them? And he said, don't you ever do that, because guess what? Those DHS folks have guns. And when they have guns, you're going to get yourself, 86'd pretty fast. He came right out and said it. That was very interesting. I mean, they were not allowed to help because the mayor, Brendan Johnson, prohibited them from helping. But they were very clear, you're going to get yourself in a whole lot of trouble. And so for some reason, that's not being properly communicated in Minnesota. Why? Oh, because you got a political movement there that doesn't want them to find the real stuff. Oh, trust me, Keith Ellison does not want them finding out what he's allegedly been involved with. Ilhan Omar doesn't want them finding out what she's allegedly been involved with. And, well, let's just face it, Tim Walz, it's the end of his political career. Trey Gowdy talking about the issue on Fox.
I think he has to get state and local law enforcement to stop working against federal law enforcement. And who better to do that than a lifelong cop? I mean, I think a lot of what you're seeing in Minneapolis, you would not be seeing if there were coordination between all of law enforcement. State cops have more intel. Federal cops have more resources. Almost everywhere they work together, but they're not in Minnesota. Hopefully Tom can change that. I'm sure that's what the president thinks.
Yes. And Tom's got a really good way about him. A very direct, personal way about him. And so maybe he'll have a little bit more luck with these lawmakers, though don't kid yourself, right? Don't kid yourself in terms of what they're about, which is protecting their own damn hides. Because there's, as I said, some bad stuff that's going to come out, and it has to do with money. Meanwhile, the DOJ doesn't seem so happy with Kristi Noem. Am I imagining this or what? I want to go to what the DOJ said in terms of reacting to her saying that the guy who was the nurse who was shot 10 times over the weekend was a domestic terrorist. They didn't appreciate her jumping the gun on that. I think because they're recognizing the sensitivity of the situation right now, that, that the ICE agents may have kind of freaked out because he was clearly dead. Was it necessary, right, for 10 times to be going after him? And so these are some of the questions that DOJ must actually confront. The president has come out and said there will be a full investigation into it. I want to go to this reaction from Todd Blanche at DOJ, which, if you ask me, is kind of throwing Kristi Noem a little bit under the bus there. And again, you think about Tom Homan going in, and he's going to report to the president, not to Kristi. So Donald Trump wants some real adults in the room.
Todd, I want to dial into the frustrations at DHS. My colleague Bill Malusian reporting about that, about the DHS's rhetoric. Here's a quote from his reporting saying there is extreme internal frustration with DHS officials going on television and putting out statements to describe Alex Preddy as a domestic terrorist who was there to inflict maximum damage on federal agents or conduct a massacre, even after multiple videos emerged to show that these claims appeared to be inaccurate. Some of these sources have described DHS's response to the shooting as a case study on how not to do crisis PR. One said they're so fed up they wish they could retire. Another says DHS is making the situation worse, and even another adding DHS is wrong and we are losing this war. We are losing the base and the narrative. This is coming to a head, Todd. I ask you, based on the DOJ's purview, do the actions of Alex Preddy amount to domestic terrorism?
Look, it's an investigation, so I'm not going to prejudge what his actions were or were not. But there's two things that have to be part of this narrative. There are two very important points that have to be part of the story that we're talking about. Number one is the reason why that happened on Saturday is because we get zero cooperation from police. DHS, Border Patrol, operates in 50 states, doing hundreds of isolated, targeted arrests every day. There is one city where we see this outrage, one city, and that's Minneapolis.
Right,
and so
but Todd, with all due respect, sir, my question is more pointed. Do you believe your colleagues may have gone farther? You are an attorney at DOJ. 18 U.S. Code 2331 has a legal definition of domestic terrorism, and it doesn't appear to most of the country that have watched the available video, and we'll see if there's body cam video. I'd love to know if that's going to come out, if there was such a thing, but it does not appear to have met that definition of domestic terrorism. So I'm just sort of wondering how you in the DOJ are viewing whether your colleagues may have gone too far.
Look, I don't think anybody thinks that they were comparing what happened on Saturday to the legal definition of domestic terrorism. What we saw was a very violent altercation, and I am not going to prejudge the facts. You're right. There's a bunch of video that's out there. There's a bunch of video that we haven't seen yet in the minutes leading up to what happened and in what happened afterwards. And you're right, to the extent there's body cam or other videos that witnesses are still providing to us. So I'm not describing it as anything except for a tragedy.
Well, he can't, okay? And he can't go after Kristi Noem. That would be completely inappropriate at this stage. She's actually his boss, so that would be, the reporter's asking the right question, but you're never going to get anything, not unless it was like game over for Kristi. I mean, they understand, like, there's a party line, you got to stick to it. But what's interesting is what's being reported behind the scenes, because there is frustration that this is not going well in Minneapolis. And look, it's not going to hit the president, right? You've got to keep the president immune to that. So who's your scapegoat in that case? Is it Kristi? Because Kristi's jumping the gun, so to speak, going straight to, okay, this person was this, that, and the other before we've had a full investigation. And I think that's going to come back to haunt her. And look, I understand, she's digging in. She's got her position and she doesn't want to waver at all. She does not want to be perceived as weak at all on this issue. We can't be weak, right? As a federal government, you have to be strong because the implication for what it means for other states is so severe. But again, maybe the answer is, gosh, this is a tragedy. We're going to investigate it fully. And then you come back once you have some of your answers. A Republican representative lawyer was on CNN earlier today making the point that everybody kind of needs to be a little bit more thoughtful here. We don't need people calling ICE a fascist group akin to Nazis, and we don't need those on the right saying anybody who protests this is some kind of domestic terrorist. Like, there's got to be some kind of happy medium here. And that's what is critical at this moment. It means, however, that, you can't have any TDS. Let me go to this clip for you.
Ashley Allison, I mean, this is something where, you have Democrats already coming out and saying that they regret. Tom Suozzi, a Democrat from New York, says that he regrets voting for DHS funding. Bill Clinton has put out a statement. I mean, we do not actually often see former presidents weigh in on their successors. They're sort of historic. I mean, pre-Trump anyway, there was this sort of unwritten rule that you tried to let the new guy do his job, even if you weren't in the same party. But Bill Clinton says over the course of a lifetime, we face only a few moments where the decisions we make and the actions we take shape our history for years to come, and this is one of them. Barack and Michelle Obama put out a statement over the weekend as well. How is this being taken in? What would you say?
Yeah, I am really trying to remove the politics out of this because I hope and pray that whether you're a Democrat or Republican, we don't want to see these images coming out of America. It has to be bigger than politics at this moment. This is supposed to be the land of the free, and you should not be a ICU nurse for the Veterans Affairs and be murdered in the streets of any city in America. I do think, though, this is terrible for the Republican Party and for the administration, and Donald Trump knows that, and he knows that if the midterms were handled right now and they tried to run on immigration, they would probably lose. I will say, though...
Forgive me, it was not the correct soundbite, obviously, that I wanted to show you. But that woman is actually making the point that Tom Homan is welcomed there. Maybe a little bit of spin, because they're trying to give Tim Walz some kind of out here because it looks like he folded because the president is sending in an even bigger deal person. It's no longer the acting interim head of ICE, Dan Bovino, but rather a bigger deal person. I think we've got, let me see if we've got representative lawyer here.
We just showed at the top of the show what happened to Alex Preddy in Minneapolis from a number of angles. In slow motion. He appeared to be unarmed. Someone takes the gun that he had a legal license to carry away from him, and then he is shot in the back as many as 9 additional times. Is this what you can see here, what you I'm sure have seen with your own eyes, something that should have happened in America?
No, this absolutely should not have happened. It is tragic. As was, the incident with Renee Good just a few weeks ago. We don't want to see any Americans getting killed in the streets, regardless of, what the facts are. It shouldn't happen. I think, obviously, there needs to be a thorough and complete and transparent investigation with the cooperation of federal, state, and local officials. And I think that's a good sign that President Trump and Governor Walz spoke today. I also think, to Senator Cruz's point, the rhetoric needs to stop. This is not helpful to the American people, whether it is, calling ICE Gestapo or calling American citizens domestic terrorists. People do have a right to protest. Law enforcement also has a right to do their job without being impeded. And I think a lot of things can be true all at once, and it's incumbent on elected officials on both sides of this equation to bring the temperature down. I think, obviously the president making the decision to send Tom Homan to Minneapolis and removing, the Border Patrol agent Greg Bovino, I think is a positive step. I think Tom Homan should be able to get this situation under control. But the one other thing I would say that I think is important here, the reason there is a surge of ICE agents and Border Patrol agents in Minneapolis, in large measure, is because of the sanctuary policies that have been enacted and the refusal to allow local law enforcement to cooperate with federal immigration officials.
Exactly.
That is something that I have said for years is wrong. It is counterproductive and counterintuitive, and is actually contributed to this situation because you have had this surge. It would not be necessary, and in other parts of the country, you don't have this situation because there is cooperation. So I think as we move forward, one of the things that needs to change, there needs to be greater communication, coordination, and cooperation between federal, state, and local law enforcement so that there is not this type of escalation, that there is crowd control measures when an operation is underway. I don't want to see death anywhere. And I think this moment is a moment for all of us to come together and address the policy head on as Republicans and Democrats and make sure
he's so right. Okay, but they, unfortunately, like they're using this. They're using this as an opportunity because they see, okay, people don't like this. Even Republicans don't like it, right? Like you don't actually like seeing ICE officers having to react to these people. And I'm with you guys. I'm looking at some of your comments. Of course, look, I grew up in a small town in New Hampshire, but one of the first things that we learned as kids was when the police pull you over, it's yes, sir, no, sir, whatever you say, sir, right? You just, and by the way, you don't go to a protest, for goodness sakes. Like, you really don't, okay? Like, I tell my kids, like, you better, if life is that easy, right? Like, if you don't have to go out and work for a living to the point where you're going to go to these protests, I'm sorry. Like, there are better ways to do this rather than to get yourself into those kinds of situations. And they're egging this on. They're trying to ratchet up the temperature, and that is not okay. And think about what Ilhan Omar has said. Think about how they call them Gestapo. Think about how they're, Eric Swalwell is out there like, oh, I'm going to make sure that none of them ever get hired, that they all go to jail. I mean, that kind of rhetoric is really aggressive and really, really, really wrong. So this is what you're up against. And so that lawmaker is not wrong, but, we've got to somehow get these people over this TDS hurdle, or we're going to be right back where we were. Oh, I haven't told you about Balance in Nature today now, have I? Balance in Nature, my favorite. Fruits and veggies is what I take. But anyway, they have a wonderful, wonderful sort of January program going on. Balance in Nature, you get all these different nutrients given to you courtesy of, I want to say there's like 16 that I take in the fruits and veggies, but some of them have like 31. You can do the whole health plan, the whole health package. It is 50% off right now for the entire year for existing and new customers. I encourage you to go there and go to balanceinnature.com. Use my code word Trish, Trish, code word Trish, Trish. It's just a really, I can't say enough good stuff about it. And I'm not the only one. I talk to a lot of people and they all take this. One of my team members, David, actually had someone visiting his house recently, and he looked on the bathroom counter, and what did you see? I said, I got to get a picture of this. Fruits and veggies. I was like, good man, smart man. So a lot of people really like it. Don't take my word for it. You can go and look at the website. Thousands and thousands of testimonials all about Balance in Nature and how it's really changed people's lives for the better, because you're getting the nutrients that you need to get. So take care of yourself. It's really, really, really important. And consider the discount, 50% off for the year. Use code word Trish. It helps the show and it helps you. But again, as we consider everything that's happening on the ground in Minneapolis, as Tom Homan comes in, the one good thing I would say is that at least the readout on the call, both from Tim Walz and from President Trump, has been one of positivity. And Walz seems to be taking the cue that, okay, Homan's coming in as a good thing. Even the media, like if you listen to the media, they're like, oh, Timmy Walz has won because Homan's coming in. And I'm like, guys, like he definitely hasn't won this round. If anything, it just got ratcheted up because Donald Trump is doubling down. He's sending in the big guns. But you tell yourself whatever you want to tell yourself. What needs to be communicated to the people of Minneapolis and to the people of Minnesota is that you cannot impede law enforcement, and we will not stand for that. So the paid protesters need to get out of the way. The organized protests need to stop. If you're a member of law enforcement and you are helping to engage in those protests like that, you need to know that this is actually a violation of federal law. This is not just, let's stand up for what we believe in. You're taking it a step too far. And that's what's really putting us on, as we dare to say, that this brink of civil war. Because when you see that kind of hate and animosity coming from one side, it's really quite scary. And so, yes, we need to tone down a lot of the rhetoric, I think, and hope that we can. And I have absolute faith in this president. I have such faith in Tom Homan. I have faith in the Treasury Secretary. There is going to be some good stuff that comes out of this, no doubt. Again, make sure that you're prepared financially to embrace the opportunities that exist. Please go check out my company, 76research.com. We will be back here again tomorrow. If you haven't gone to my Spotify page, please do me that favor. I'm going to actually put this in the chat. as we get ready to end our program here, because we are always there. You can always catch just the full live version of the show. It's just the live version of the show there. So I love having you here on the channel. You get all the content here on the channel, but the full live version of the show exists right there on Spotify. So I encourage you to see that. I'll try and pin that to the top. Thank you all for being here. Again, we'll be live tomorrow. Hopefully it'll be a little bit warmer out. I'll get out of the ski sweaters one of these days. But hey. Who's kidding who? I'm from New Hampshire. We like this kind of weather. We like these kind of ski sweaters. I like you. Thank you for being here. I'll see you tomorrow.